Let's move over to this now. Township consumers are ditching some brand names for cheaper items when it comes to their shopping. This is one of the findings of the 2023 Township CX Report. Now in its third year, the report polled more than 1,000 individuals living in townships nationwide. It seeks to better understand their spending and saving habits, as well as the brands that resonate with them. Let's discuss the major findings of this year's report with Senior Brand Strategist at Rogerwilco, Mongezi Mtati. Thank you for joining us in studio this afternoon.
Thank you.
A very interesting report indeed, and I think it's very important to learn the spending and saving habits of those living in the township. They do form a huge contributor to the economy. What were some of the key findings of the 2023 report?
I think one of the biggest ones is this drive towards the township brand, or the South African brand, and predominantly the township brand, where we're seeing a rise in people having a preference for brands that came up around them, that came up in South Africa, came up in the townships that they live in. That's one of the biggest findings. And also the fact that some people are spending over 50% of their income in the township, in the spaza shops and supermarkets within the townships, with a preference, of course, as you said, for value rather than brands.
Yeah, and that's quite an interesting turn of events, and I wonder if it's the sign of the times that traditionally you will always go for a specific brand. It's just how it is. And now because of the constrained consumers, times are tough, you're just going to look for the best value for money. So the report, I suppose, showing that trend continuing to rise in the township.
Absolutely. And I think it's also this shift of influence, or the levers of influence, where the person on the ground who runs a small store, who runs the spaza shop, has a lot more influence than, say, advertising. And they are trusted by the customer, which is something that even big brands can learn from on a sort of the customer experience perspective side of it.
So obviously then you're seeing more traffic going to your local spaza shop as opposed to the local ShopRite or the local Pick and Pay in the areas. Tell us about the stores that consumers are purchasing their goods.
So they're purchasing predominantly at spaza shops. Like 51% are purchasing at spaza shops daily. And they then go to supermarkets once a week or less so to supermarkets. And we are also noticing that there's this rise of this weigh and pay model where spaza shop owners are taking things out of the original containers of
like
big
bread.
brands. Exactly.
They're halving the loaf of bread, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we're seeing that with things like maize meal as well, flour in some instances. And spaza shop owners are telling us that they had to adapt to this as a result of these constraints that people are experiencing because of a tough economy.
Yeah. What else did the report tell you about perhaps the saving culture within the townships? Are people having anything to save at the moment?
So one of the questions we asked last year, which we expanded upon this year, was whether people were part of stokvels or not.
Yes.
And of course, people are telling us that they are part of stokvels. And one of the fastest growing segments is the 18 to 24 age group, where they have risen from 37% last year to 44% this year, saying they are part of stokvels. And as younger and younger people become part of stokvels, we see a rise in the adoption of technology in the management of stokvels.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting. And they've also expanded beyond food, because traditionally we knew stokvels to be centered around food, buying in bulk. And they've also expanded to assist people, whether it's via burials or acquiring land to build homes. Have you seen that continue to mushroom within the townships, that they've expanded beyond just the provision of food and basic necessities?
Absolutely. While we didn't ask that question, media coverage and other research that we juxtapose ours against tells us that people are also investing in property now as these groups sort of savings models that are stokvels. They're finding ways to invest in property. They're finding ways to even buy into businesses, and more so within the franchising space, where we know of a group that is buying into franchises as stokvels. So they started out as a stokvel model, but now they're able to buy into stores, sell fast food and all of these things that come up because of this trust within this ecosystem and the saving.
Yeah, one interesting finding I thought that came out of the report was brand loyalty. When it is there, the brand loyalty has shifted to more local brands. So it references things like Drip and other local fashion or other brands that exist out there, and that is encouraging the acknowledgement of people within the township economy realizing that local is lekker, so to speak.
Absolutely. So we expanded on that question again this year. So last year we asked people, if you had the option to buy local or international fashion brands on your store account, which would you buy? 74% of respondents last year told us they would buy local fashion brands. So this year we flipped that question around slightly to ask, have you bought local fashion brands in the past year? You said you would last year. Did you? And people are telling us that they have. And to your point, just over 7% of our respondents are telling us that they bought a Drip item, 4% a Batu item. Others are telling us they bought Drip. Others are telling us they bought Amagip. So there's certainly a growth where that's concerned. And this is to the point I made earlier about local is now as sought after as handcrafted, which comes from other parts of the world, which we used to follow in the past.
Yeah, and that's quite an important development because that is the drive that government has been trying to penetrate into the markets across the country, not just in townships, over years now. Talk us through the technology component here and the trends you're seeing in terms of people in the townships buying online or making use of online platforms or e-commerce to purchase whatever goods and services they may need.
They absolutely are. So once again, last year we asked if people have bought online. They told us that they have. And due to economic constraints and the levels of unemployment, we asked this year whether people have started working online, have started supporting themselves online. And overwhelmingly, 57% of the people we asked said either they or someone they know has started working online, supporting themselves and doing and turning their connectivity into money. And this also comes off of the back of fiber coming into townships, as well as the rise of LTE and just general connectivity, where people are now turning this connectivity into money, into supporting themselves in light of tough economic conditions.
Now, tell us about that connectivity and how important it will be to have innovations that make sure that people have access to these digital platforms, the data, the connectivity that's needed to engage on e-commerce platforms.
So on the one hand, there's absolutely the need to increase our connectivity platforms, but where townships have always kind of taken a stand and have always been ahead is in making a plan and creating an alternative where there isn't one for them and for their townships. We are seeing that in the likes of also the rise of delivery services that are competing with giants that are rising up from townships and using platforms such as, in some instances, WhatsApp rather than an app that is developed around a delivery platform. So there is that. That said, though, we are also finding that people are saying that when being in townships, they sometimes don't get as much support from brands, either from their websites or from platforms that enable them to complain or to interact or engage with brands when they have challenges. And these are some of the things that brands need to also look at our ways of solving.
No, thank you very much for your time. Very interesting report indeed. And we look forward to the next installment that, of course, you'll probably be working on. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That is Senior Brand Strategist at Rogerwilco, Mongezi Mtati, speaking to us about that report looking into the spending and saving of those dwelling in the country's townships.